Holy hell. This may be my favorite episode ever. No bullshit. Bothering the band with Ralph, aka Casino Skunk, who is the producer of Getting Lost, a Lost, that's right, TV show documentary, which we're so excited about. And by we, I mean me. Abby's here too. Anyways, he's making it with another friend of the pod, Taylor, who made the last Blockbuster documentary, which you may have seen on Netflix. Ladies and gentlemen, this may be our longest episode. It's certainly my favorite. Bothering the band with our new best friend, Ralph. Ralph,
How's it going?
it's going well. And yourself?
Doing all right. I was just talking with Taylor.
Huh. Very cool. Very cool. Can you hear us? All right.
Yeah, how do I sound? Do I sound all right?
Oh, you sound pretty good. You sound pretty good, but you're a pro at this, right? Because you produce or you do something with a bunch of other podcasts, right?
Yeah, I have a bunch of podcasts. I've been podcasting since 2006.
Oh wow, you were early in the game.
Yeah, I did a Lost podcast back then.
What was it called?
It's called the Dharmalars.
Okay, yeah, that's right. I saw that on your site.
It's a yeah, we did pretty well for ourselves, but that's before like the Chris Hardwicks and Kevin Smith came in to sort of take over podcasting.
Yeah. So what was the platform you used back then? Like how did that work?
Jeez Louise, we hosted our files on some, I don't even remember what it was called. It's been so long. It's been what, 17 years? And then and that company got bought out by Libsyn, and I'm still using Libsyn to this day, like hosting files and stuff. And then we would just, you can post to, like, I think we're using Blogspot at the time to post, and then that would feed um to iTunes. So
Wow. Wow. I remember this is probably like 2006. I was working at a bar and this dude came in. He was like, check it out. It's like recorded radio. And I was like, what? That's bananas. And then
yeah,
we
I
just
didn't
dated ourselves.
I just heard about it. um I don't even know how, probably through iTunes. They probably had a section for it. And so I went on and I was like listening to him. I looked up Lost, like literally the first thing I looked up was Lost because it was so huge at the time. And so I'm like, oh, let me check this out. And it was a husband and wife team. And I was just like, yeah, this is pretty awesome. These guys talking about Lost. Didn't realize that it was just fans.
Yeah.
I thought it was like a professional thing. And then I found out, like, oh, like anyone could do this.
Yeah. I mean, we're similar boats
Yeah.
where we started this in the pandemic because I was writing a bothering the band article series where I was just asking bands super silly questions. And Abby and I did a poetry like Zoom workshop during the pandemic, and I was talking about it and someone was like, you should start a podcast, and I was like, I don't know how to do that. Luckily I had someone who did know how to do it, and here she is. uh so and I don't know how to, well, here we go. You are a fan of Lost, correct? You're not just someone who's working on a film and getting a paycheck, right?
I got approached by the director, who was a fan of Lost, also happened to be a fan of my podcast, um, to produce it for him. I've never produced a documentary before, and I was a little nervous about it
Only feature
because
films,
it's
right?
right. Yeah, exactly. No, but I've been podcasting like pretty much since 2006, and he pretty much told me, like, you can't screw this up. He's like, I've done a handful of feature length documentaries, so come on board, we'll have fun. And I kind of got thrust into this thing, and it's been wild. Have you ever produced like feature documentary?
No, I mean in college I took film classes and we made our own things. And then in New York, when I lived in New York, I was all my buddies were musicians and comedians. And so I would help, but I was not the
Yeah.
like it was not everything fell on me like what you're talking about right now.
Right. Yeah, because right now, I mean, pretty much the entire production, he called me about almost 2 years ago, coming up in November. It's been three people tops.
Oh wow.
Me, Taylor, the director, and then for shoots, we would have a DP slash camera operator slash grip slash everything to help shoot on our third camera because we shoot every interview with three cameras, some two, but mostly three. And then Taylor's wife has also come on as a producer, which is kind of helping me out a ton. She's a whiz at spreadsheets. And so it's just been like, okay, she's able to get it more organized.
You got to get yourself someone with spreadsheets.
Um, but it's like we were doing pretty well and we were going pretty strong. But when Emily came in with her spreadsheets, like I was trying to do spreadsheets and they were all right, but now they're so like airtight organized that I'm just like, oh, thank God this is this is happening because something like this requires a lot of organization, and you definitely need some people who organize. So
Yes, I can concur with that.
I do all our spreadsheeting, and Ryan's not
yeah,
allowed to touch any of them. And every time he does, I'm like, you were in my spreadsheet again.
well, that's the thing is I was doing spreadsheets, and Taylor would come in and add to the spreadsheets and stuff, and then later I would go in and make sure they were formatted correctly and stuff. But then Emily came in with her spreadsheets, and I'm terrified to touch them because they're so like perfectly laid out. And so like I would make one change and I would look at the whole thing and be like, okay, if I add this change, is it going to mess anything up? Is it going to look out of place? I want to make sure that I'm doing it right. But it's a, yeah, I mean, spreadsheets, they really are the unsung hero of documentary filmmaking for sure. And for your podcast too. Abby sent me stuff super easy, got in, knew where everything was. I don't know what you're looking at right now as far as the spreadsheet, but on my end, like it was like, okay, cool, I know when to be there, it's right in my calendar, and I have the link to the Zoom, and I'm like, perfect.
Oh yeah, that makes me feel so good. We're in good hands. Um, I was gonna well, I'm all over it. My brain is going 100 miles a minute.
So
So
wait, are you a Lost fan?
I am, and
Okay.
let's dive into it. So Abby prefaces, she's like, "It's gonna be you and this guy just geeking the fuck out, right?" And I was like, I'll do my best to steer this, but I'd be remiss if I don't mention. So I was a giant fan of Lost. I am in the camp of not a big fan of the ending, but I look at it like a relationship. Like it was like a first love where it's like it was so great for so long. Just because the ending didn't, just because she cheated on me doesn't mean that the memories don't mean something. You know what I mean? And that's
Right.
the metaphor I've said over and over again. That
But
being said,
that's kind of what the finale's about. And it's kind of played as a joke now. But people say, it was the friends you made along the way. Like you hear people throwing that out there as like a punchline, but like that's kind of what the ending of Lost was. And we've come across a couple people making the documentary who didn't care for the finale. And I have a question for you because I don't know if you fall into the same category. Because what we did is uh, while interviewing somebody, we realized that they hadn't seen the 12-minute epilogue to Lost, which is in canon. Have you seen the 12-minute epilogue to Lost?
I have, but I remember not like I have never revisited a again, this is gonna throw off the arc of this episode, but um I have about once a year I watch the Desmond episodes, and that's all I revisit because that's again, it's like leafing through a photo album. And you're like, this is when times were good. you know.
Yeah.
But anyways, keep
Yeah.
going.
But we found like a lot of people, they'll say like, oh, I don't know what the deal with the polar bears was, what
Uh-huh.
happened to Walt, that kind of stuff. And the 12-minute epilogue like brings those two things up specifically. I know it doesn't answer all the questions, but it's a couple of big questions that they just kind of like. If you didn't like Lost, the ending of Lost, you weren't going to buy the season 6 Blu-rays, and so you missed the thing that you were probably looking for,
I
but
gotta go
because that's
find
where they
it.
buried it.
I
Yeah,
haven't seen
it's
it. And
online.
that's always my first thing. Is my first introduction to Lost was I walked into my dad watching it and a polar bear ran through the rainforest and I went, nope, and didn't come back for several years. And then I binged the whole thing. But
How many times have you heard that though, by the way, Ralph? Like that specific like little diatribe of polar bears on an island? Fuck that. You know, like even in the thick of it, people were like, that was the dismissal. And I've heard this, and it's not her fault, it's not anyone's fault, just over and over and over again by people who didn't get sucked in like me.
What's hilarious is one of the we've interviewed an actor from the show who didn't watch a single episode.
Oh wow.
Um, um, Probably maybe appeared in those episodes you revisit.
I was gonna say, is it Ian Cusick?
No,
'Cause-
no, no,
no,
no, it's not
wow.
him.
Okay.
No. And then there's another one. There's some people who were fans of the show that came in later as sort of guest stars, like as guest appearances. Those are fun. But there's one, and I don't know if I should say it, but it might be spoil. I don't know if it's going to be in the doc or not. But one of the funniest things was one of the actors was in Lost, like a major character, was watching the show, and as soon as the island disappeared, he said, "Fuck it, I'm out. I'm out. This is ridiculous."
Oh wow, that's deep though. That's so deep in this series.
It's so it is. It's the finale of season 5. He had like what 14 more episodes to go, something like that. And so it's one of those things where I'm just like, we cover the spectrum of people who and their sort of engagement with the show and their enjoyment of the show and their thoughts of what was going on and what they liked and didn't like. What's good is Lost has a lot of opinions, and I feel like we cover a wide range of those in the documentary, and it's so much fun because like every time you revisit those Desmond episodes, you probably catch something new every time.
Oh yeah, or something I just completely forgot, or now just new things where I'm like, that's cool, you know. Like,
So it's one of those things where it's a really fun topic to discuss with. We've done 29 sit down interviews, we've done 11 like shorter fan interviews at Comic-Con, and we've got B-roll, we got footage from the last year's Comic-Con panel for Lost, and we have over 100 hours of footage from an unreleased documentary about Lost podcasting from 2009. We got all the footage for that. And so like, it's kind of fun being able to dive back into this world and see all of these things, especially with that old documentary footage, because that was 2009. That was right before the final season. And so it's like a weird time warp thing. So
yeah,
it's like
wow.
if you make you don't real like, I guess I did, people probably realize this, I didn't realize it when I said yes to do this documentary, was that you're going to learn a lot of stuff you didn't know. Because I thought, oh, we're just going to go talk to fans, and it's going to be like, and talk to cast members and crew, and it's going to be like, oh yeah, we all have Lost, cool, fun. And then you start learning things from interviews that are off camera, that aren't going to be in the doc, and things that are probably said in confidence and we're not going to share. But it's like, oh, there's this whole other story about Lost that we're going to try to get people to say on camera, but at the same time, it's like there's wild stories out there where you just like doing the documentary. I'm like, wow, I didn't think I was going to get into stuff. I didn't think I was going to get into like hardcore like stories where, you know, someone mentioned something, and after an interview, while we're packing up our equipment's off, microphones are off, everything's getting put away, packed away, and we hear a story about somebody, and then we're like, wow, that's nuts, crazy. Go do another interview a month later, packing up our stuff, there's a story about that person. Wow, really? And you just start hearing these things. You get these little sprinkles of more than what we're able to say in the doc. But man, if you get a chance, if there's something that you really, really love and you get an opportunity to produce a documentary about it, do it, because you're going to get so much more than the audience. And we're going to put like, we have our doc has a lot of fun stuff in it, like a lot of fun stuff. But being behind the scenes is wild. It's wild. And it's a ton of fun too.
Man, my notebook is filling up very fast. Okay, let me hit on a couple of things. One, you talked about the things off camera. Do you have Nestor Carbonell on the
We're
in the
reaching out to
doc?
everybody. We're trying to reach out to everybody.
Because his wife wrote a book about their experience there, and it's a
Yeah.
little tumultuous, and I don't, like I read that book a long time ago, but I'm like, oh, okay, because it was a little behind the scenes. It definitely wanted more. I also have to say, because he's texting me right now, he knows this. My friend Ruben and I have to just throw this out there. You're talking about fandom. Still to this day, I think one of the most popular. I'm a writer. First of all, I've published books. I've done a ton of shit. But one of the things I think I got the most recognition for is my friend Ruben and I wrote a blog called The Lost Boys, and this is I know there's a podcast now, but this was in like 2006, 7, 8, 9, and maybe 10.
I think I remember. I think I remember because I was surfing a lot of stuff. I just remembered there was a site, I think it's called Lost Media, where they put screenshots of Lost, every episode of Lost, like every like 3 seconds or something. You can go through and find screenshots of every single frame of Lost. And yeah, like Dark UFO, Nikki Stafford's blog,
Yeah, we were on
Joe
the
Pinionated. I remember the Lost Boys. Yeah, I think there is a podcast now called The Lost Boys. I mean, we named our movie Getting Lost, and of course we found out there's a podcast called Getting Lost, and I'm like, there's certain like titles where you're like, what are you gonna do? It's the title's kind of right out there for the taking. But yeah, I remember that blog.
So it was through EW. It was like an offshoot of Entertainment Weekly, and the woman, one of the editors there, was looking for people to cover pop culture stuff. And at the time, I was like bartending in New York, and me and my friend Ruben, who is like a gangster Puerto Rican from the Bronx, he looks tougher than he is. You kind of look like him actually, and we started writing it, and then it evolved into this thing where it wasn't even a recap. It was about how it affected our lives, where, it was more about like Ruben woke up today and was still upset about last night's episode. Goddamn
Right.
Juliet or something like that. Just like it was very gonzo and whatever. And this is not hyperbole or a lie or anything. And I was by myself somewhere in a bar in New York City, and someone came up to me and goes, you're one of the Lost Boys. And I was like, what? Like no one
Yeah.
knows who I am, like even through this podcast, no one knows who I was like, what? And like then another person goes, Frank Lapidus, like this. I'm like, because
Right.
we
Who
love Frank
doesn't?
Lapidus. Anyway, so I had to throw that out there. Shout out to Ruben. I told him about today because he's
Yeah.
rewatching it. And so to stay in the vein of bothering the band, I'm gonna ask you some of Ruben's questions.
Okay, perfect.
And I, again, my memory isn't as good. I probably at one point when I'm ready to revisit the show in its entirety, I will do it. I don't know when. Why? Speaking of Juliet, what did you feel about Juliet?
I think I felt exactly what the show wanted me to feel about Juliet. At the beginning, when she burns the muffins and stuff, you're like, oh, this poor lady. Oh no, she's another. I don't like her. She's bad. And then she kind of gets shunned by the others. And I'm like, oh, I feel bad for her. But season 5 might be my favorite season of Lost.
Okay.
And that's where Sawyer and Juliet get together. And I just absolutely, completely fell for it. It's my favorite relation. I wasn't a shipper.
Yeah.
I was all about like the sci-fi. I wasn't into the melodrama. I wasn't into the relationships. I
No,
wasn't
God,
into the
no.
faith stuff. I was into the sci-fi stuff. I was into the polar
Same here.
bears.
Yeah.
I was into the Darwin Initiative. I was into that stuff. So that
Time travel, all that shit.
season
Yeah.
5 was the time travel. But when sort of we get a 3-year gap that we miss, and we come back and it's Juliet and Sawyer have been together and been this amazing couple, just like power couple that's just doing everything right. I'm like, oh, all of a sudden I like Sawyer a lot, and Juliet's amazing. And by the end of that season 5 finale, when she hits that bomb,
Oh yeah, she sets off the bomb.
it made me sad. And it's one of those things where it's just like, I feel like with Juliet, it was perfectly done. It was perfect. That's my thoughts on Juliet. And I mean, Elizabeth Mitchell just looks like a sweetheart. I don't know. We're trying to get a hold of her. We're trying to get a hold of everybody again.
Yeah.
But man, if I get a chance to sit in a room with Elizabeth Mitchell, I bet you it's just going to be like a warmth emanating from her, because we did sit down with Sonia Walger, who's in those Desmond episodes. For those of you keeping tally on who hasn't watched the show, like
this episode is going to get a lot of like either like fandom, yeah, I love Lost, or like F you, this is a music podcast, and we'll get to it, I promise.
Yeah, we'll get to the music. I don't know if you've heard anything about the music in our film.
I haven't.
But it's gonna be something else. It's gonna get yeah. Go ahead, Ruben's questions if you want.
Ruben's question, but we're gonna bounce all over. This is gonna be one of my favorite episodes. Is okay. So you mentioned Taylor. Taylor famously directed the Blockbuster documentary that was on Netflix that had a ton of people in it. We've all seen it. Abby and I, when we first started this thing, it was about right after the ska documentary he came out. We are victims, casualties, if you will, of the 90s ska punk rock revival. I whatever you want to say, I love it. I have an Operation Ivy tattoo, whatever you want to say. Right. I've been following Taylor for a long time. When he posted something about, 2024 is the anniversary of when Oceanic Flight 815 crashed. We're doing a documentary. I followed everything he did. And I think I messaged him like, you guys were already doing it. But I messaged him. I was like, I would be a fucking janitor, or like, I'll chew up your food. And if I could help out for free, like I'll fly myself. And I think he was very polite and diplomatic, but that's besides the point. I just wanted to give a backstory on Taylor, and everyone go watch anything he does. Yeah. So back to Ruben's questions. Do you have any tattoos, specifically any Lost tattoos?
I can say I have one tattoo.
Okay.
I got it 5 years before Lost.
Okay.
And it's sort of in the neighborhood of Lost, in the fact that no one's saying this but you guys, but I have a giant Kyle Rayner Green Lantern statue in my room. And Kyle Rayner, I have his here, I'll put that. I have his little emblem that's on his chest tattooed on my arm. Now, cut to 5 years later, Lost airs. There's an episode with Walt where there's a polar bear in his comic book, and that's a Green Lantern comic book, Green Lantern Flash, but it is the Kyle Rayner Green Lantern with that symbol. So I don't
time travel.
I don't, but maybe it is kind of a lost thing. Oh, what's so great, dude? Taylor found a copy of that comic book, the Flash Green Lantern comic book, not in Spanish, but we do have footage of Malcolm David Kelly who played Walt, all grown up, reading the comic book. It's somewhere teased on our Instagram page. But it's one of those things where I get excited because I've been a Green Lantern fan since I was a kid, and so the fact that Green Lantern made it into Lost and has been mentioned a couple times in the documentary is gotten me excited. But no, it's the only tattoo I have, and it kind of relates to Lost in a weird way, in the weirdest of ways.
In the most lostiest.
Matrix.
Yes, in the most lostiest.
Yeah, would you consider that a Lost tattoo?
I think the narrative speaks for itself, and yes, we will
Okay.
we will count
All
it. So this comes from Ruben is watching in his words, the worst episode ever, which is Jack's tattoo episode,
Oh boy.
where he goes to like Thailand and gets the tattoo. I know you have to be diplomatic as well, and you have to be impartial. Do you have to be impartial? You were nice
no.
to Juliet.
This is
and a lot of
our
people-
documentary is about fans of Lost and
Okay.
and behind this and like kind of like where we're all at in 2004 to 2010. Here's the thing: I definitely have least favorite episodes of Lost.
Yeah.
I think, and I've mentioned this before, and it's a real weird one. Is Further Instructions has always been my least favorite episode of Lost. Only
Which
seen it
one
once.
is that one?
So that's the one where Locke goes into the sweat lodge, and then also his flashback. He's living on a drug farm,
Yeah, I remember.
and then it ends with Locke in a standoff with Eddie, who he thought was his buddy at the compound, but turns out is like a CIA agent or something. It ends with the standoff, and they never come back to that story whatsoever.
Wow.
But I want to tell you something, and I've said this so many times, and I know Taylor's sick of hearing me talk about Stranger in a Strange Land,
Yeah.
which is that Jack episode. It may not be a good episode, but I think it's a very important episode, and I tell you why. There's an episode later that comes. It's called Through the Looking Glass. It's the one that says not Penny's boat.
Yep.
It's also the one where Jack meets up with Kate and says, we have to go back.
Yeah.
Like that kept me awake all night because I didn't know what happened to Lost and what's going to happen with Lost. It's a huge deal. So that episode is amazing. And it starts off with Jack on an airplane with a full beard, right? Normally red flags would go up. What is this? But with Stranger in a Strange Land is his flashback, his most recent flashback before that finale.
Okay.
And he gets the shit beat out of him by Achira's brothers.
Yeah.
And he's traveling aimlessly throughout the world. I think it's after he got divorced. And they show him like on a plane with he has stubble. Like the last time we see him, he's in Singapore. He get the shit kicked out of him, and he's got this stubbly beard. He's down on his luck. So the next time we see him is in Through the Looking Glass, where he's just on an airplane with a full beard. So in your brain, the Lost Writers did this magic trick. It's a sleight of hand. They misdirected you to think you're continuing. Oh, this is where we left Jack last time. So here we go. And this whole time you're thinking it's part of that story, when in fact it's a flash forward. And it's Stranger in a Strange Land might not be a great episode, but I think it's a really important for that magic trick.
Yeah, it's the setup to the trick.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think it works pretty nicely because not once during Through the Looking Glass did I say, oh, this is a flash forward. Never once. I assumed it was a continuation flashback. Also, another fun fact about that episode, which is everyone says the worst episode. The following episode is Trisha Tanaka is Dead, which is the one with the Dharma van, with Hurley and Charlie and Sawyer and Jen drinking the Dharma beer and starting the Dharma van, which is the most joyful episode of Lost ever.
Yeah.
Like it's it's the happiest episode of Lost. And I think from that point on, it just hits the ground running through the rest of the series. So it's that Stranger in the Strange Land is a really weird episode, but I think the way it bounces back with Trisha Tanaka and the way it kind of misdirects you for the finale of that season, I think it's really good. So not a good episode, but a little bit important. It's a little bit of a misdirect for that finale that they were cooking up.
That is a really good positive way to look at it. And that leads me to one of our questions that is, pre-written. And I'm gonna just rewrite it a little bit. Do you remember the music they were listening? You obviously know this. What music they were listening to in that episode? The Trisha Tanaka is dead.
Oh yeah, the Shambhala, the Three Dog Night. Yeah, I've
No,
been using that in like
was that
all my stories, all my Instagram stories. That's one of the songs that's available.
I thought that was the Geronimo Jackson episode when they found the record.
That I don't know when that takes place, but I do remember that after that episode aired, they released the Geronimo Jackson Dharma Lady song on iTunes, because Lost was one of the first shows that you can download and watch on iTunes.
Yeah.
And so ABC had a relationship with iTunes, and so when they released that Dharma Lady, which Geronimo Jacksbeard, I just assumed, because I think they were brought up before, when they first discover the hatch, and Charlie's down in there going through the records, and he's like, Geronimo Jacksbeard, I never heard of that. And then maybe later they play the music, but I assumed Geronimo Jacksbeard was just the band that nobody heard of. But it turns out they were on the island, like it was a band
Yeah.
on the island. So are they pressing records on the island? How do they record those? Did they send the tapes, the masters, on the submarine off the island
To get them pressed.
and then brought back record? It doesn't make sense.
Oh,
But
man.
it makes me happy thinking about it. I'd like to do a deep dive on that. Maybe I'll talk to Taylor. We could get to the bottom of it.
And if you need some more interview, segments or people on, talking heads, I'll happily do it. I'll fly.
Are you're in Florida?
Yeah, I'm in Florida. Where are you at?
I'm in Anaheim,
Oh,
California.
okay. Very cool.
Yeah.
Abby's in a different part of Florida, but yeah, we're in Florida. Abby, I'm gonna bring you back into this because I can see you spacing out. You're like, I don't know what the hell they're talking about. You will watch one day. I know it will creep up on you to watch, and then all these things will click.
I've seen all of Lost.
You called the jungle the island a rainforest.
I did.
You don't know what you're talking
I didn't say I was a diehard fan. I did say that I lived in the woods with no internet and no cable, and a friend who had every season on DVD, and that's all we had to watch for 2 months.
about. Oh, good. And you didn't get sucked in.
You didn't really get into it?
I enjoyed it. Until the finale, which made me mad, but now I'm going to go watch this epilogue. It's going to answer all of my questions.
Oh no, it's not going to answer all your
And-
questions.
No, don't get your hopes up.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing that's great about Lost is at the time it started, Twitter came around halfway through the series run. We were still working on MySpace, like doing that kind of stuff. Podcasts came along, DVRs came along. So this is the first show where you're like, oh, I can pause my TV and look at that shark. There's something on that shark's tail. What is that? And I think that's a Dharma logo. That's the same thing in that bunker they went to. And then you go on a message board or you go on Twitter and it's like, hey, did anybody else catch the shark? And now all of a sudden, there's this global fan base that are all talking to each other for the first time. We're able to pause the images. We're able to talk to everybody. And then we're able to communicate and have conversations with friends on a recorded radio show that we could just send out to the internet. And we were getting listeners in like Australia and Kuwait, and it's mind-blowing that I'm sitting there in my apartment with my friend and a laptop. Why? I'm not important. I'm not. It's just two guys just talking about a show they like, and for some reason we'd get like people listening, and it blew my mind because when I went to Comic-Con, to the Lost panel 3 months after we started the podcast, someone came up to me and said, hey, aren't you Ralph from Dharmalars? And that blew my mind. I'm like, it's an audio podcast. How do you know who I am? And it's one of those things where it's just like, we were only 3 months in. And I mean, at the time, dude, our iTunes, like this will never happen again for me ever. But we got number 18 in all categories of, like almost every Saturday we'd hit like the top 20 of all podcasts. And then number 4 in TV and film. Like we're getting something like 20, I think we're getting 27,000 downloads a week, which I'm sure is modest by today's standards. But podcasting was that's where we were in podcasting, where this random guy was up there. So it's kind of funny, and the only reason I'm doing this movie is because Taylor listened to that podcast.
That's awesome. That is very cool. Kismet.
It's
And
lost.
and
It's
and
like a lost connection. It's really
yeah,
weird.
I think it was a perfect storm of like the show was great, the technology was up to speed, it created a community. Obviously, it's very culty. People it's polarizing. People love it or hate it or whatever. And you meet someone who's into Lost, it's not like oh yeah, I want. It's like all or nothing, pretty much,
Yeah.
and it's real fun. So
I
flashing
think
back, go ahead, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think what's fun about Lost is, and them not answering every question, is that you find somebody else who you can sort of discuss it with. If they answered everything, I don't think we'd be talking about, where polar bears came from. I think there's enough in the series for you to sort of kind of pick it apart and look at things from different angles. And someone else might have a different point of view, and together you can kind of come up with something that might work as an answer. So I think it's more fun not knowing everything than it is having all the answers, because you can still talk about loss. These interviews we're doing, people are asking questions and we're talking it out and being like, oh wait, yeah, maybe that is thing. Like it didn't even really occur to me, the Geronimo Jackspear thing, that they had a record,
Yeah,
a song called Dharma Lady, which
yeah,
Dharma is like a secret organization, which means someone on the island is in that band. It never occurred to me until now, like, how did they make those records? Who has the press? Where are they getting the vinyl pellets from? It's
oh yeah,
like, where do they, like, you don't just make records. Like, you can't just make records. You need machinery for that.
yeah.
So that's something that, like, we can talk about and work out together and figure it out, and then be like, oh yeah, Rosinski had a big record collection, and if you look in the back, he has a record. I don't know. There's enough clues in there where you can figure it out. But yeah, that Dharma thing, is the Dharma Lady by Geronimo Jackspear, is never really thought about it.
Uh, yeah, we talk about the matrixy stuff all the time. And another thing I have to mention is at that time in the world, my first book had come out, and I sent it. If Jorge Garcia had a blog called Dispatches from the Island, where he just wrote about the filming a little bit and living on Hawaii. It was him and his lady and his dogs. And it was, so we would visit that thing. And one day he posted his address, a P.O. box. And I sent him one of my books. Forgot about it. Like a year later, someone found me on Facebook and goes, hey, I don't know if this is the same person, but you should check out. And it was the URL to his thing. And then on his blog was my cover of my book, and him being like, if anyone can help me find this guy, I want to thank him for sending the book. And then we started chatting. And I've sent him
Cool.
almost every one of my books now. And we're just like internet friends. I love that guy. Shout out to Jorge Garcia. There's no way you got him, right? I've seen some photos.
Yeah, he was like, I think he's one of the reasons why Taylor approached me to
Yeah,
be in the movie.
he's the sweetest dude.
In 2007, 2006, we were just finishing up our season 3 recap, and I got a call from him, or he sent me a MySpace message, and I called him, and he said, hey, did you guys do your episode for this week? And I'm like, what the fuck, dude? Like, seriously? Like, I'm like, well, yeah, but we were planning on doing like a prediction for the finale. And he's like, oh, okay. I'm in town. Is it cool if I show up? And I'm like, of course. And we've been friends since.
Oh, that's great.
So let me tell you
Ask
this
him
story.
about Ryan the Poet, Coyote Blood. He'll know exactly what that is.
Okay. Yeah,
He
absolutely.
sent me books too.
Absolutely. So a little time after the finale, in my mailbox, I got an actual box of Dharma Initiative Dharmalars from the set. I'm not going to say who sent it to me, but I'm sure statute of limitations and the fact that we're talking about Jorge right now will let you know. long story short, dude, you want to hear something wild? Is that me and Jorge are friends. I went to a party of his. It was a 4th of July party. I brought a board game with me because Jorge's way into board games. It's a board game called Fireball Island from 1986. If you haven't played it, it's amazing. If you want to get a vintage one, good luck. Good luck. They're really expensive. So I brought it out to play with Jorge, and who walks in the door but Michael Giacchino. So Michael Giacchino walks into the door, stares directly at the box, because if you've seen the box art, it's nuts. Like, it's this giant tiki head shooting fireballs and adventurers, Indiana Jones style, rickety bridges and palm trees and rainforests. It's more tropical jungle. It's an island. And he makes a beeline and he's like, "What is this?" And I'm standing there just like, "Michael, I've been listening to it. This is in my head. Michael, I've been listening to your music since Medal of Honor in 1999. And I love your music. And I love what you did on Lost." Because this is like 2013. This is like 10 years ago. And my brain is like, dude, I've been listening to film scores since I was 4, back in 1981. I got a cassette tape of Raiders of the Lost Ark because my mom wouldn't let me watch it. And I've just been obsessed with film music, and I've been obsessed with Michael and his music. And I'm standing here having a conversation with him about fucking Fireball Island for Milton Bradley. It's like I'm like, what is happening? Cut to last Sunday, where I was playing Fireball Island with a group of 5 other guys, one including Michael, one including Jorge, and we've been playing Fireball Island on Zoom.
Oh my God.
For 3+ years.
That's incredible. So one of the first questions was, tell me you got Michael on the dock, unsung hero of the show.
So Michael's a friend.
That's amazing.
Which is, it's still weird to say. But so we did an interview with Michael, of course. He's a great friend, and we had a great interview with him, and he told us all about, like, he didn't get any notes. He never got notes.
Really?
ABC would send him a tape in the mail. He would pop the tape in, watch the show for the first time while writing the music. He didn't want to tip his hat on any storylines. He wanted the music to be very reactionary. So he would pop it in, no music, and he'd just sit there and write as he watched. And then a week later, it was recorded with a full orchestra, and he sent it off.
Wow, that's crazy. That's also crazy. At that time, he's using a full orchestra too. That's
nuts.
Wild.
So in 2009, Michael did a documentary for PBS. I believe it's the same. It may have happened during the Lost scoring sessions. He did this music that sounded like Lost, but it also had woodwinds. And the music for this documentary, nobody saw the documentary. It was called Earth Days. And this music Michael owns, and it's previously unreleased, and it's a full orchestra. It's an hour and 5 minutes of music, 25 tracks, and Michael just gave it to us for our documentary.
That's so cool.
We have an hour and 5 minutes of unreleased Michael Giacchino music that he wrote while he was doing Lost. And it sounds like Lost. So I don't know if you've had a chance to check our Indiegogo. We have a first look. If you watch that video, all the music in that isn't from Lost. It's the music Michael gave us. But if you listen to it, you're like, oh, that's Lost music. Your brain doesn't realize you're not listening to Lost music. You're listening to the music that we're going to be using in our documentary. And I'm so excited about it. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to do your podcast, because you talk about music. And this is like, I mean, he literally sent me a text message with a Dropbox link to all this music. And he's like, here, you have it. I'm like, do I need to sign anything? Do we need to do it? He's like, no, just take it. We whipped up a contract with the music supervisor that Taylor knows, just to be like, we want to make sure this is like he's a friend. I know he's given it to me without any sort of issues. He's just like, yeah, just have it. He told me this is a score I've been sitting on for 12 years, waiting to just like reuse it for the right project. And he's like, I think you guys have the right project for this music. Here, just have it. And he sends me a Dropbox link, and I pop it open, and it's these 25 tracks, and I hit play, and I start sending a text message to Taylor. I'm like, hey, remember when we're going to use Michael's son Mick to score the movie? He's like, yeah, well, he's not going to. Michael gave us music. And as I'm saying that, and as I'm listening to the music, I just start bawling, because
Oh
here's this guy I've been
man.
a fan of since 1999. Like, I've been with my wife since 1999. Like, my relationship with Michael's music is as long as the relationship with my wife. And so, I've been to Lost concerts. It makes me weep. The music is so good. It hits you. It transports you into the show. And now music that's written by that guy, like, we couldn't get anybody to do a Lost knockoff music and it sound like Michael Giacchino. This literally sounds like Lost music with woodwinds added to it. I mean, I can't wait for people to hear it. It's nuts.
Wow.
So go look at that first look and listen. That's not from Lost.
This is this third time, just chills, like real chills. And that's just coming from geeking out. I have so many like dumb questions that I'm
No,
like,
that's fine.
we're
I got
skipping
dumb
this.
answers.
Oh man, but this is great. And I selfishly, I'm just like geeking out at this so much. And I think it's so cool that you started this humble. You're like, I just started a podcast and then I got asked to do this thing. No, you have a big storyline here of fandom turned into, I don't know, professional something or other, or friendship. And I have to ask Abby, don't you think he reminds you of Chuck?
Yes.
Ooh, who's Chuck?
Chuck is a friend of ours who's been on the pod. Chuck Staten. He's a podcast producer, a filmmaker, and he's like the East Coast you, but in the world of stand-up comedy and like
Oh, great.
Kevin Smith's world. So he works on Tell 'em Steve Dave podcast.
Oh, amazing.
He works on
I'm an ant. I'm a card carrying member. I'm part of the Four Color Demons. Great. Chuck's great. I love Chuck.
he also does Tuesdays with Stories, which is a comedy podcast, and he's similar sensibilities. Knows all the knows some great people. Knows a ton about pop culture and comedy and all this. So I had to throw that out there because we'll just message him and be like, listen to this one. And then he's like us, where he's like not afraid to be like, hey man, what are you doing? Like, let's work together, like that shit. So shout out to Chuck. You guys would work well together, I think. We talked about Michael.
Yeah. How great. What a good dude.
So great. I have to ask, there's a few fun questions I'm gonna ask. Have you personally ever successfully lost something and then found it in a lost and found bin?
Oh boy. I want to say yes, but I don't know what it was. I could have sworn I'd lost, because I worked at Disneyland
Oh no shit.
for
I worked
like
at Disney
15
World.
years. What department?
I worked in parade audience control.
Oof. I've done that.
It was great. I loved it. I was 16, 17, 18 years old. This is 20 years ago. I loved it. But
I did 15 years. 15 years in custodial, 1 year in parking.
oh wow.
5 of those years was third shift custodial.
Yeah.
I get to listen to scores all night while hosing down the muck. But I had to have lost something there, and because the lost and found at Disneyland's pretty easy going.
Yeah.
But I can't think of a single thing that yeah. I wish I had a better, more fun answer.
No, it's okay. We'll move on. Last question: Jack or Lock?
See, that's a tough call, because I'm 100% a man of science.
Okay.
But B, Locke is so much cooler than Jack. But like Jack's kind of a wiener. Like Jack's so self-absorbed, and it drives me nuts. And maybe I shouldn't be. I mean, it's the character. I have nothing against Matthew Fox. Matthew Fox, we want you in the movie. Please, please be
He's
in
a
our
big
movie.
listener, so yeah, you'll get him.
But no, that's the thing is like I would tend to side with Jack as far as the science thing. Like I get it. But I mean, by the end of the series, Jack kind of starts believing. I guess that makes sense for his story arc. But for me, I mean, Locke was just like, dude had like his knives, and he had like the whole thing with the wheelchair and being healed by the island, um, hunting, and you're like, man, this guy is like the coolest guy. And then you find out his past is nothing but tragedy.
Yeah. The worst life ever. Look.
Yeah, never a good moment. And being on that island changed him, and that's great. And I found Locke very interesting. But my main dude, I don't know if you have a question of who my favorite character is, but it's Hurley. But yeah, forget those two other guys. Hurley,
My favorite is Hurley and Desmond. Those were my favorites.
the good ones.
By far. Oh, you know what? This just hit me too. When I was in New York, I was bartending, and this beautiful redheaded woman came up to the bar, and it took me a second, and it was Charlotte.
Oh,
Was in my bar, and we started chatting, and she was very nice to me. And well, I'm not going to go into too many details, but lo and behold, I got fired from that bar that night. And I wasn't sober at the time because she was super nice. She's stunning. We were talking about
he's
Lost.
tall, right?
She was very tall. I was giving
Yeah.
her drinks, and every drink she had, I had a drink. Um, and yeah, so much like you, Lost has been peppered throughout my life, and I love it. Maybe I'll get a fucking Lost tattoo. Maybe I'll get the numbers.
I saw Rebecca Mader at one of the Lost
Oh, that's her
concerts.
name.
I
Yeah.
think the last one Michael did in Los Angeles here, and she went up to do a reading for the concert, and I saw her walking down the aisle. I'm like, man, who's that giant, stunning redhead? I was like, wow, she's tall. She's something else. I get it. I mean, if you're gonna get fired, yes, having drinks with Rebecca Mader is a good way to get fired.
And yeah, we could talk off. This will be one of those things like in the doc. Afterwards, we'll talk more.
Yeah.
Did you read Lord of the Flies in high school?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm not much of a reader, but I do remember reading that.
Okay. So, do you know what I'm going to ask next?
I don't know. Is it something about Piggy?
No, it's actually not. It's actually it's not even a question. Both Jack from Lost and Ralph from Lord of the Flies were both appointed the leader rather than choosing to be the leader, and both have doubts about their ability. Your name is Ralph. I thought that was
My name
fun.
is Ralph. Not a lot of us out there.
I just
Well, I
geeked
heard a
out.
thing where there's a thing where they were like, they always talk about the most popular baby names. Well, they also do the opposite, the least popular. And I think this was in 2022, and not a single kid born in this world was named Ralph. And it kind of made me bummed.
I think it's cool that yeah,
It was my grandfather's name. So
that's cool, man. So I have a Ralph question. Another Ralphie May or Ralph Macchio?
Machio.
Okay.
Ralphie May is cool. Ralphie May is cool, but dude, I grew up on Karate Kid, like nobody's business. Ralphie May is great though. I like him.
He was great. I could okay. Have you ever seen the film King Ralph starring John Goodman?
Okay. So I've never seen King Ralph. Music by James Newton Howard. I know that.
I'm sorry, what?
So James Newton Howard is a composer that I really like. Did like The Fugitive, Hunger Games. I can go on, but I'm not going to. He did King Ralph. I haven't seen it, but it was one of those things where it came out around the time I was in high school, and that's all I heard. Hey, King Ralph.
Oh yeah.
And so it's a little, I should watch it. I mean, I like John Goodman.
What about Wreck-It Ralph?
Wreck-It Ralph.
That's what I was called when I was in parking at Disneyland.
That's
Yes,
fun.
I've seen both. They're great. Henry Jackman did the music for both of those, just to make sure that we get some music talk on your show. Michael Giacchino, I forget that, so Michael reprises his role as FN, I don't know, whatever, his stormtrooper call sign in The Force Awakens. He reprises that role in Wreck-It Ralph. He plays a stormtrooper in there, and his credit, they give him the same stormtrooper designation in the credits.
Oh wow,
That's
that's
a fun
so
fact.
cool.
Yeah.
Wow. You okay, so
Yeah.
again, my brain is like just firing off like crazy. When's the last time you saw your pal Michael?
In person, a week and a half ago.
That's wild.
We did it. Everyone was in town, so we did an in-person game of Fireball Island.
That's so cool. Next time we're in Southern California, because hopefully we're gonna try to do another live show there next year. Let's hang out. We'd love to buy you coffee and just shoot the shit.
I don't drink coffee, but I'll drink hot chocolate or highball or something. I don't
That's
know.
perfect. I'll stick with the coffee or tea. You and Abby can have hot chocolate or chocolate milk or whatever. That's why you don't drink coffee, huh?
I don't like the taste.
Okay, it's a taste. It's
There's
not
a time where I tried to, and then the thing with working graveyard shift at Disneyland is that that's all everybody drinks,
yeah.
and so I'd have to find like tea bags and drop some ice in it, or because I don't like hot tea. I like an iced tea. I was drinking Monsters,
Oof.
not a sponsor, but anything to get you through the night when your hours 11:30 p.m. to 8 a.m.
Yeah,
You
that's
tend to
rough.
find some caffeine
That's
wherever you
rough.
can get it.
Or cocaine.
Yeah, none of that. None of have any of that stuff.
Oh, okay. I feel comfortable asking you this. You seem like you know your shit in terms of pop culture, and I'm curious because I know both of us do it. I know all of our majority of our friends do it. When you're watching a program, a show, a movie, what have you, and you see like a character actor that you know, do you say their name out loud? For example, oh look, that's Rob Corddry.
I try not to.
Like just the most weirdest, oh, French Stewart.
We watch. Me and my wife have been watching Car 54. Where are you?
Oh wow.
The TV show. Just something I decided because we were sitting there eating ice cream. We went to an ice cream place, and I went ooh because I was excited to say something, and then it made me think of the character Gunther Tootie from Car 54, and then I had to explain to her who Gunther Tootie was, and so we found out that Car 54 is streaming on Freevee, and we just started watching it, and it's like oh, that's the guy from, oh, that's Miss Garrett from Facts of Life. Oh, that's, and I try not to do it because she doesn't say it drives her nuts, but I feel like I don't have to. It's, I don't know. I don't know. It feels like a flex, and I don't feel like it's like I don't feel like I don't like being a guy who flexes stuff, but I do get excited when I see character actors. And also what I like to do is when we're watching, because we're also watching Newhart,
Oh
the
wow,
80s show
cool.
Newhart.
Love Newhart.
Yeah, it's a great show. And like anytime like we see like someone in it, like that guy looks familiar, I'm on IMDb constantly while I'm on the couch. I think it's a habit that I really picked up during lockdown, was because you're just sitting there all day with nothing to do, and so the TV is not the main source of entertainment, it's the phone, and you're just listening to the TV.
But you're researching it and like you're going to, I know you do exactly what Abby and I do. You go to the pay Newhart and you go to like trivia, or you go to the cast. You're like, this guy was also, he played this person in Seinfeld 10 years after Newhart. And then like
Right.
you just go down this thread, you weave a tapestry in your own brain. And then once it happens again, you have to tell yourself, don't say this character actor's name out loud.
I did that to you when we were watching Pee Wee Herman. And Phil Hartman showed up at the end, and I was like, it wasn't a flex, it was more like excitement because
Yeah.
back then I didn't know who that was, but I was like, Phil Hartman.
Yeah, that's the thing is sometimes you just get excited and blurt out the name.
Yeah.
Like you
Yeah.
can't, it's more about being excited than it is just showing off your the worthless stuff you have in your head. Like,
To me, it's an excitement.
It's like driving past cows. You have
Yes.
to do it.
That's a brilliant analogy. To me, it's an excitement. But I can see the flex. I can see if I were like young and date, like it might be annoying.
we went and saw Blue Beetle,
Oh yeah, how was that?
and it was good. I enjoyed it.
Oh, nice.
But Blue Beetle's mom is played by the woman who plays Anna in Predator. And
Oh, yeah?
I said, and we were talking about Predator before seeing the movie for some reason. And then I'm like, afterwards, I had to say, like, oh my gosh, we were just talking about Predator.
Yeah.
Blue Beetle's mom was in Predator. And then we watched Predator. My wife had not seen Predator at all. And so we watched it, and
The original.
She hadn't seen it. I don't know how she missed it because I watch a lot of Arnold movies, but I mean, I could understand her not really paying attention to it. But we watched it, and she's on Letterboxd, and she gave it 3.5 stars, and I was over the moon. I'm like, that's a great score for a really misogynistic movie from 1987, you know. And I was like,
But
she's like, it was
Cheesemo,
entertaining. Yeah, those guys. Oh my god, all with their
the
muscles.
cutting his thing. So this brings me to something that Avi and I remind each other, where we have to remember that not everyone is like us. Like not everyone, because I don't know if you do it, but I'll be somewhere, and if I say a reference and someone's like, if it's spot on, if it's a Indiana Jones reference and you're not getting it, or you're like, I've never seen Indiana Jones, I'm like, I don't think we can be friends. But I have to remind myself that I am the oddity. I am the weirdo that knows too much about this. And I'm not even, I don't want to say bad. I'm not even that as knowledgeable as some of my own friends who know. So it's good to have another like-minded pop culture casualty is what I call them.
Yeah, it's fun that when you watch a movie with your significant other, they hadn't seen it. There's nothing more deflating than when they don't like it, but there's nothing better than when they do like it. Like we watched Beastmaster, and I hadn't seen Beastmaster in forever, and we sat there and we watched it. I'm like, yeah, this still holds up. I'm digging this. Yeah, this is good. And then when it ended, she was like, that was great, and I'm like, amazing. Like it makes you so happy. Like anytime, specifically when she says she hasn't seen something, it gives me the opportunity to pop that on.
Yeah.
And just fingers crossed. I hope it doesn't just like she doesn't hate it, because I love Predator. I love Predator, and I love Beastmaster, and I'm glad it worked out. There's some things that don't hold up. Like after Beastmaster, I got real cocky. I'm like, oh, we need to watch Ice Pirates now, and Ice Pirates does not hold up. It deflated me. I was like, oh man. So now I got to be more careful about what I get excited about and what I put on. But Beastmaster, yes. Ice Pirates, not so much. Predator, yes. And then we'll see what the next thing is.
Oh, that makes me think of, I recently rewatched with somebody Blind Fury. Are you guys familiar with this? Rutger Hauer.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, please hold up. And
you don't know.
You don't. And I still enjoyed it. And they were like, that's like the worst thing I've ever seen. And I was like, oh, like Ryan said, I was like, we probably can't be friends anymore.
Or when you're watching with someone, you look over, they're just on their phone, and you're like, oh, come on, this is the best part.
Oh, the worst is when they get up to go to the bathroom and say, don't pause it, I'll be back. And you're like, oh,
it's a direct kick in the dick. Like, how
yeah.
dare you?
I might as well just shut it off now.
My daughter she just turned 9. And so we do movie night a lot, and we're getting in there. I watched a clip of Bill and Ted's recently, and I was like, I think she can watch this. So that's one of the ones I'm going to push soon. And we did a lot of like 80s kids movies, 90s kids movies. But can you imagine? I think about this, like, I can't wait to watch like Goodfellas with her. Like, can you imagine watching Goodfellas for the first time? But then I talked to you bozos, and I'm like, what if she does? She's a young lady.
Yeah.
What if she doesn't? I. It's a perfect film, but I also think of the excitement of watching those for the first. You know what one that didn't click with her is Nightmare Before Christmas. She was like, I'm not feeling
Oh
this.
wow.
She watched it. I mean, she gave it her go. And anytime I get on IMDb, she's like, Dad, put down your phone. I'm like, you're right. You're right. But Nightmare Before Christmas, she was like, man, I'm good.
Didn't she also not like the Mighty Ducks?
She was hesitant to give Mighty Ducks a chance, and do you know why? And I'm going to ask both your opinions on this. You go to certain streaming platforms and you go, let's watch the trailer, and then it's some out of context bozo scene.
Oh, it's like a minute long scene instead of the trailer.
Yeah, and it was like
Yeah.
I forget which scene it was in Mighty Ducks, but it was like, wait, what? Like, I think it was when they were climbing on the limo or something like that. And she's like, what is this? And I'm like, I promise you, I know you, I'm your father, you will love it. She did. And then we watched all of them. And, you know,
Yeah, because you remember back to like maybe like your parents trying to show you something, and you're just like,
yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know about this.
I think I was a little bit more open because I did love, like, you love sound, scores and soundtracks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I loved movies from a very early age. And so anytime someone, and I still to this day take suggestions very seriously. So if you're like, I think, especially music, especially movies, I know, like, you'll like this, check this out, I will immediately go listen to it. I will try to find a time in my schedule to watch it. But also back then there wasn't a lot of options. Like
Right.
now
You
there's
have
a
to go to the video
billion
store.
yeah. Now there's a billion options. Okay. What do we got here? What's the weirdest snack you ever snuck into a movie theater?
Oh boy. Oh man. I honestly couldn't tell you. I kind of just like Raisinets, but
Okay,
I'm
that's
trying to
pretty
think
weird.
if I've snuck, but I don't know if I've snuck anything crazy. Again, it's one of those things. I know I've probably taken in like McDonald's cheeseburgers in my pockets. Yeah, anything that could fit in my pocket. So it'd be like there'd be times I want to say like Jack in the Box tacos where like I was working at Disneyland, and so I'd get off and my friends like, we're meeting at the theater, and this was before they had assigned seating.
Yeah.
Get here as fast as you can. Okay, there's a Jack in the Box in the parking lot, and just putting greasy Jack in the Box tacos in
In your
my
cargo
pocket
shorts.
and walking in, and it feels like you're like smuggling like narcotics over the border. You're so afraid that some kid who's like 2 years older than you is gonna catch you and like kick you out. Worst case scenario is they kick you out and you eat the two tacos outside and then go in and meet with your friends. But at the time, it was like some kind of crazy heist trying to get something. But probably, yeah, I would say Jack in the Box tacos, just because why does Jack in the Box have tacos to begin with? But I'm glad they do. I'm
That
glad
is
they
so
do.
great. I remember the moment where I was like, I didn't know you could do that. And it was my friend Dan. He was like, come on. And we snuck beers in. We were our 20s in New York. He was like, let's take beers in and watch District 9 or whatever. And I was like,
Oh
we
man,
can
that sounds
do
great.
this? And then I just kept upping the game. So I highly recommend next time you go to a film in a theater, Taco Bell.
We'll do.
And all the same candy that they sell there from the dollar store.
You could do better candy too, though. You could get like dark chocolates and shit.
Yeah, me and my wife had like a box of candy, like a box of chocolates from C's. I don't know if they have C's over there. C's candy. And we just put some in a bag and just dropped it in. Because I mean, if I'm gonna go see like, Death on the Nile, I want some high quality chocolate.
Yeah.
That's no room for Nestle's Raisinets.
I love C's. I don't
C's
think
is
we
so
have
good.
it here. I know
I've
C's
never heard of
from
that.
Colorado.
Yeah. There's a thing called California brittle.
Yes, I've
Yeah.
had that.
So imagine like a peanut brittle, like a really thick, but not like sticking your teeth hard, but then
Okay.
it's like dipped in chocolate.
Oh man.
It's like so buttery and salty and caramely, and Oh, it's so good. California brittle. This is not a sponsored ad, but
We're sponsored by we're
But we would
sponsored by
love
that.
to
Yeah.
be sponsored
and
by C's. So if
and
anyone from
Monster
C's is
Energy drink.
listening, I will accept all of your chocolate to promote you on every podcast.
Free chocolate. We're like, are your
and
parents
send me Jack
like,
in the Box tacos if you're
Yes.
listening. Jack.
Abby's parents are like, you making money off the podcast? No, but I have all of this chocolate. So dumb. Okay, Ralph, can you do any Hal Needham stunts?
Oh boy, someone's read my bio.
Oh yeah, we do deep dives here, bro.
Okay, so the Hal, I can't, because Hal Needham was nuts. So whenever Twitter happened, and whenever I got Twitter in like 2008 or 9 or 7, I don't remember when it was, I was trying to come up with a bio for myself and I couldn't think of anything. And Wikipedia was fairly new. And I just like went to Wikipedia and I just typed in Megaforce, the movie Megaforce.
Nice.
It's an action film from 1982, directed by former stuntman Hal Needham. And that's what it said at the beginning of the Wikipedia thing. I copy and pasted it onto my bio, and I've done it ever since.
Oh, that's very cool. I like that.
Megaforce is a not great movie from 1982. Which, incidentally, I don't know if you ever want to get into a good year to talk about movies. 1982 is the one to talk about. Probably the greatest year in movie cinema.
Oh, I know some people who listen to this pod that might debate you. And do you know
Go
what
for it. They're going to say 1989.
They're going to say 99.
99, episode 1, Dogma. Yeah.
A lot of things. I mean, Office Space, Magnolia, a ton of stuff. There's a whole book about it, like the best year in movies or something like that.
I mean, Tron, Blade Runner, Dark Crystal, Night Shift, Rocky 3,
Night Shift,
Conan the Barbarian, Tootsie, Megaforce, Beastmaster, the aforementioned Beastmaster. Dude, like 19, did I say Blade Runner? And none of them, John Carpenter's The Thing, all got squashed by E.T. at the box office. Wrath of Khan.
Oh, wow.
Look up 1982. It's huge. I'm
Poltergeist.
Hitting the
Did you say
Poltergeist?
That?
Yeah,
wow.
No, I didn't say Poltergeist. There's some
what
I'm forgetting,
else?
but it's quite a list.
Rocky 3.
Yeah,
he said Rocky 3.
Okay.
One of the is it Friday the 13th, the first one? It's one of the Friday the 13th or 1982 as well. But I mean, it's a huge year for 1982. Look it up. I think we hit a lot of them. Did I say Night Shift? Night Shift is great.
Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Whoa, okay.
The Verdict. Sophie's Choice.
Okay.
Yeah.
1982 is kind of killing it.
Yeah. It's a good year for people being born too. In October.
A lot of good stuff.
Ralph, not counting soundtracks or through work, what's the last music you listened to?
Not including soundtracks
or scores. Like, yeah,
I've been listening to a lot of Beck lately.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, there's not a whole lot of bands. A lot of bands I listen to are from like the 90s and earlier. Maybe I got into some of like Killers and the Strokes and stuff. But I just watched this trailer for Rebel Moon.
Yeah.
It's the Zack Snyder movie.
Yeah, I watched it on IMDb. It's the first one.
He used like, I like Jane's Addiction, and he used one of my favorite songs from Jane's Addiction. It's called 3 Days. It's like a 16-minute long song, and I absolutely love that song. And I'm afraid that all the people are going to start loving that song. I had some friends who kind of back when I was in my 20s sort of made fun of me for liking ELO. It's just ELO. One of those things. Like, I love ELO. And one of my favorites, and they would just give me shit constantly about ELO. Like they're really, really giving me shit about it. And I just
Well,
like,
they're
I tried to
wrong.
be like, okay, I knew that they were wrong. So then Michelle Gondry releases the trailer for Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind and has Mr. Blue Sky playing. And I was like, I love Mr. Blue Sky. It's one of my favorite ELO songs, but nobody knows about it. And those two friends come up to me, hey, Ralph, did you know the new trailer has ELO music in it? I'm like, yes, I know that because ELO is rad. And now all of a sudden, because of that trailer, they think ELO is rad. And then Mr. Blue Sky is being played everywhere. And I'm like, oh no, that's the song I like that nobody really paid attention to. And now they're all paying attention to it. And like James Gunn put it in Guardians 2. And I'm like, well, I guess I just like the Diary of Horace Wimp will be my new favorite one that nobody else knows. And it's one of those things where it's just like I love 3 Days. It's an amazing song by Jane's Addiction, and the fact that he used it in Rebel Moon, I'm like, please don't ruin this for me. I'm afraid it's already too late. People are gonna find out. But anyway, Beck. Beck, I went to a concert for the first time to see Beck a couple weeks ago. I don't know what people's thoughts are on Beck. I love Beck. I have, as far as non film score vinyl that I own, I have the most of Beck. I don't know. I don't know if that's anything that you guys are into. I don't know if you've made fun of Beck in the past or stuff, but I think he's an interesting guy, and I had a real good time.
Well, we make fun of everyone, but that
Right.
doesn't mean we don't love them.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
we honestly, Abby, we talked about Beck a recent morning. You had brought it up.
We did, because I love Beck, not so much his religion, but everything else.
I have okay. So every time I talk about Beck, there's someone that says, "Oh, but he's a, I'm gonna say it, Scientologist." And I'm like, yeah, but like the Beatles were probably Catholic, and I think Catholicism is just as goofy as
It's
Scientology.
a very good point.
So what's point? And then also I read that Beck was born into Scientology and then may have sort of gone away from it in the last like 5 years or so. And it doesn't matter for me because I feel I don't like. I mean, I bring this up a lot, and I don't want to piss anybody off, but I again, I grew up 12 years of Catholic school and sort of distance myself from that. And it's just one of those things where I'm like, from my point of view, I think all religion's goofy, but I'm not going to yuck anybody's yum. If that's what you want to do, go ahead and do it. It's fine. I don't mind. It just makes it easier for me to be like, I like Beck's music no matter what he does in his private life. Obviously, if he does like bad things and he's, turns out to be grosso, weird, like, hey, he's doing stuff that people shouldn't be doing, then I'll be like, okay, maybe you won't listen to the music. But I like the music, and I like his recent stuff too. I think Hyperspace, his most recent album, might be my favorite Beck album.
So good.
It's really good.
T to B.
Yeah.
He's very talented.
I always like the less dancey Becks.
Yeah.
I like Mutations used to be my favorite. I like Modern Guilt. I like Morning Phase.
I like Morning Phase. I know that one.
I think my least favorite is Midnight Vultures, and my wife gives me shit for that all the time. It's her favorite, and it's my least well, not my least favorite. There's Stereo Pathetic Soul Manure, whatever it is. But there's things where it's like my Beck, I want him to use more instruments than electronics. I don't mind the mix, but like One Foot in the Grave, his first album, I love. But Hyperspace was the right level of Beck for me, like a real chill thing. And he didn't perform any tracks from it at the concert, and I was bummed.
Well, I know what I'm going to be doing tomorrow while working is doing a deeper dive on Beck.
So good.
Guess whose guitar pick this is?
Mick Jack.
Well, now I'm going to guess Beck.
It's Beck's. It's Beck's guitar pick.
That's cool.
I don't like the Stones.
No, it's okay. It's a Seinfeld reference.
Oh,
I don't know if you're a Seinfeld fan, but
I haven't watched all of them, but yeah.
yeah, George. Someone goes, "Guess who I saw at the soup kitchen?" George goes, "Mick Jagger," and they're like, "What?" What? Anyways, okay. When's the last time you watched Lost Boys, the film?
It's one of my wife's favorite movies,
Yep.
and I've never seen it.
Whoa, that's
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah. There's some blind spots.
You have seen all these great, amazing movies. How did you miss that one?
There's so many of them.
What were you about to say? The blind spots.
I have a bunch of blind spots.
We all do. We all do. I talk more about this, please.
Yeah. We're getting into the Halloween season here. I'll bring it up. I'll add it to our list. Me and my wife have a shared list of like movies we want to watch and stuff like that. So it's sharing stuff on iPhones and shared lists and shared calendars like is the greatest. We have a grocery list that we have a shared grocery list, and it's a lifesaver. So I'm gonna put, as soon as we're done, and put Lost Boys in there.
I'm going to
we'll see
vote
if I
that you
watch it.
guys watch that because it sounds like you've shown her several things that she didn't see. So now it's her
I
turn.
see all kinds of stuff that she watches too. What do we just watch? Singing in the Rain, which I've seen several times.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's one opinion. I'm just kidding. It's great. It's great. No, it's a good movie, but I'm not into musicals, which is weird because I like.
Yeah, for real. Actually, that's wild. You mentioned blind spots, and lawyer of the podcast, Adam Santiago, is one of my friends who's a giant cinephile, had never seen Jaws, and still has not seen all of Jaws. The last time we hung out, I was like, "We're watching Jaws," and we got too tired, we fell asleep because we're old. But I'm with you on musicals, where it's like my daughter is super into musicals, and she's like, "Daddy, have you seen Sound of Music?" And I'm like, "I haven't." If you tell someone that,
Actually, that's like one I like.
That's my favorite movie of all time.
like, it's happening this minute. We're in the Matrix. It's happening right now. You say that, and they're like, "What? You haven't seen that? Oh, you're crazy." And I'm like, I just grew up where my family was like, "Let's watch Harley Davidson, the Marlboro Man," not that shit, you know? And I would have watched, I love Grease too, but that's where
The sequel or Grease also?
no, Grease 2.
Which, by the
Got
way,
it.
I was going to sidebar later and let you know. Came out in
1982.
1982.
I love it. It's the better Grease.
But I have a confession to make, and that's that until this past weekend, I had never seen Castaway.
Oh, what? That's wild.
So there you go.
Music
There's
by Alan
my...
Silvestri, who did the music to Predator. I still have never seen Castaway.
Wow. I love your parlor trick you have here.
Knowing the composer,
I do. I really love that you like, that's cool, man. That's a cool thing.
and when one of them says, "Here's some music for your movie," I'm like losing my mind.
Well, let's bring it back to the movie. Well, actually, I want to ask you two
I
other...
mean, I'm fine talking about other stuff.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know. Usually these things are an hour, and we're on an hour and a half.
I know. I just realized that. I don't want to keep you.
I mean, I could keep going. No, this is how this goes, is that when you know the episode's good when it's just geeking out. We just had Matt Pinfield on.
Oh, yeah, Headbanger's Ball.
Yeah, of course. And 120 minutes, and he's done it so much, and it was a lesson in just shutting up. But he just went, and you don't want to end it. You just want to be in the moment. And I'm feeling the same thing now, where I'm like, let's talk more about movies. Oh, like Grease 2 just got me. So.
Wait, he didn't do Headbanger's Ball. That was Ricky Rackman, right?
I think he took over. I think Ricky
Did he take over?
Like left, and then Headbangers. Yeah, I'm almost certain he took over.
I didn't want to get the
but
comments.
He started on 120 minutes.
Right.
But that's a great episode. Everyone go back, listen to that one. Tell us about Casino Skunk.
Okay. It's so funny, and I feel bad about it because, like, I don't feel bad about it. I was guesting on another podcast called the Valley Cast, and they brought up Casino Skunk, and they're like, it's like the two grossest things. And I'm like, oh boy, I never thought about it. And I'm sending off emails to like Evangeline Lilly's people from my Casino Skunk address, and my thing says Casino Skunk Productions in the signature, and I never realized how gross it was. I'll tell you the origins of that Casino Skunk is I was on my 21st birthday. I went to Laughlin, Nevada, sat up at the bar, stroke of midnight, ordered myself a drink, didn't get carded, which was the whole point of me waiting till midnight to drink. Had a good night. 4 a.m. or so, go out to the boardwalk over the lake in Laughlin, or the river in Laughlin, and we see a skunk. And the skunk looks like a happy skunk enjoying its time on the beach, running across the beach. And me, being a drunk 21-year-old, yelled down real loud in the middle of the night, "Hey, skunk!" And it stopped in its tracks, looked at us, hissed, and ran away. We're a few yards away. It wasn't going to get us or anything, but me and my friend thought it was hilarious that there was this casino skunk. And around that time, AIM started, American Online Messenger, and I'm like, okay, what is the handle? Here, I'll just do Casino Skunk, and it kind of stuck. So since whenever I turned 21, that would have been like, I don't know, 19 some, I don't know when, 99 or something, or 98. Is that right? 1998. I was born in 77. But yeah, it's been that for since then. And so yeah, when I got on Twitter, I grabbed the handle Casino Skunk. When I started doing podcasts, and I'm like, oh, I'll make a production company, it just, everything became Casino Skunk. And if you type Casino Skunk in a browser, you'll see my face everywhere.
I love that. I love that it became it started as an inside joke. I think some of the best creations ever start as, friends shooting the shit. And that's the essence of this whole thing. I'm sure your whole thing is just like-minded people getting together talking about cool shit. And Abby and I do this all the time, where it's like, who do we want to befriend? Who do we want to bother? How do we get into the it's just, how do we force ourselves into people's lives? We're doing it right now with you. It's a Jedi mind trick. My handle is Coyote Blood. My personal handle on everything is Coyote Blood. And again, going back to my friend Ruben, who I wrote the Lost blog with, it started as a dumb inside joke, and now we're 20 years later, and it's everything I do is associated with that. And now Bothering the Band's taking over, where it's like everything I make, or if someone's like, hey, you get a free custom t-shirt if you buy this, I'm like, oh, I'll make a Bothering the Band t-shirt and all this shit. Casino Skunk. I want a Casino Skunk shirt.
I don't know if they're out. I might have one. I might have one out there. I don't know. I have a Threadless page. Do you find it off-putting? Is it an off-putting name?
I don't, but I'm a weirdo.
Yeah. I'm wondering how many of my emails actually just go to spam because they think it's like an actual casino ad or something.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that it's unique, and it's going to grab the people you want to grab their attention. It will grab their attention, and it will filter out the other dum-dums. However, you should ask Taylor for a gettinglost.com email for Evangeline Lilly specifically.
Right. I can always send it from there. Yeah. We've already talked to her people. There's the strikes going on, so it's a little tough.
Yeah. Are they allowed, are they allowed to do like docs?
They are. They're allowed to do docs. They're allowed to do micro budget films. We're completely independent. And so we try to tell them, like, you can still do our stuff, but if you're not comfortable, we can wait until after, and then you will say yes, because you didn't say no to us. But we'll see. There's a lot of people we still want to get, and we're like waist deep in this Indiegogo thing. So I haven't really reached out to anybody recently. So yeah.
Perfect segue. Tell people where to find the Indiegogo so they can go give.
Yeah, just go to the movie's called Getting Lost, and it's gettinglostdoc.com. and that'll take you right to our Indiegogo page, where we've been going for a week and a day. We've been going for 8 days, and we've already hit 435 backers as of this recording.
Bothering the Band will donate. I don't
Oh,
want
great.
to check our budget, but we'll give you something.
Yeah.
And by we, I mean whoever I can get to fill out those forms.
I mean, honestly, the best thing that a lot of people we know, they're like, oh, there's a lot of places that you can, give your money to in this world. There's a lot of things going on that people need actual like help with. And if this is something where you're like, I'd rather my money go to one of those better causes, that's great. Just share it. If you share it, you're going to find a Lost fan, because Lost was huge back in the day. And if we find a Lost fan, maybe they'll contribute. So mostly what we're asking for is people to share the link, gettinglostdoc.com. And that seems to be working. We're really happy with the fans coming through for us on this. Yeah, we hit our goal in 30 hours.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Are you going to send me a VCR if I buy this VHS copy?
My only suggestion, so want to hear something wild?
Yes, always.
On my Casino Skunk Patreon, not a plug, I would do this thing called impromptu interviews, where I'd go on Twitter, go on Facebook, whatever, and say, if you're not doing anything right now, be on my show. Like literally right now.
Wow. Okay.
And on Facebook, I got a response from Taylor, who had been my friend on Facebook since the inception of Facebook, because Taylor was a listener of the Dharmalars, my podcast. So I'm like, cool. Let everyone know I found the guy. This guy's going to come on and join us. I'd never spoken to Taylor before. I had never interacted with him. The algorithms in our Facebook never really told us about each other. So I go to his page just to do a quick, okay, who's Taylor? Wait, he directed the last blockbuster. That's fucking nuts. Crazy. So I jump on with Taylor. 5 minutes later, we're podcasting. So, dude, you did this last blockbuster movie. He's like, yeah. I'm like, I love VHS. I'm VHS dude on social media. Like, if you go to social media and look up VHS dude, it came from the VCR. I had like, I don't know, however many followers on Vine. And he's like, wait a second, you were VHS dude? I'm like, yeah. I was like, holy shit, I only knew you as the guy who did that Lost podcast. And it's this weird Lost connection. Lost always had those connections in the flashback where people cross paths but never met. It was one of those. Like, we're both diehard VHS fans. I have a VHS hat. Diehard VHS dudes, and I'm literally VHS dude everywhere on socials. And I'm like, that's weird. And so we had this great conversation about his documentary, The Last Blockbuster. And then 2 weeks later, hey, can you call me? Yeah, sure. And then he asked me to produce Getting Lost. It's like, how random is it that he's the guy that found me first to do that episode, and that we had this sort of connection with VHS, and then now here we are doing an Indiegogo for a movie that we've shot, I don't know, 40 hours of.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
That is, we talk about Matrix shit all the time. And I actually have this question. It is based on Lost. Do you believe in fate or destiny, or the Matrix, as we call it?
I don't get it. I don't understand. Why did I take Fireball Island to Jorge's house that day? For it to ultimately become Michael Giacchino handing me music for nothing for a film I'm producing? None of it makes sense. None of it makes sense. And I still don't believe in fate. I feel like maybe I can be a rich guy, and instead of a Green Lantern statue, I have a Batman statue, and I live in Arizona. Who knows? I might have a better life out there somewhere, but the one that I got dealt right now is pretty fucking good. And I don't know how these pieces are falling together, but they just are. And I don't believe in fate at all. I mean, I feel like I I think it's just a small world, and you kind of come across, you end up, as you go through, you start weeding out the people that you don't need in your life. Toxic people, mean people, just people you have no connection with. And as you go through life and you start filtering those people out, the world gets really small. You know, I know Jorge because of the show Lost, and I know Michael because I know Jorge, and I know Taylor because of Lost. And Lost was such a huge part of so many people's life that it's really easy to run into one of those people. I'd never met you before, but I remember the Lost Boys blog. But it's one of those things that, it's there's something about Lost, and this is with all fandoms, where especially now with social media, as toxic as it can be, it does bring people together from around the world. And that's great. I do a show about Star Wars with someone in England that was a fan of Lost, and now we do that. It's so crazy. It's just one of those things where it was a global phenomenon, and it brought a lot of people together. And over the last 20 years of the show being around, some of those relationships never severed. They just continue on. And I don't know if that's fate. I think it's the human nature of just like surviving and existing, and weeding out the bad and latching onto the good. And you just kind of, you find a way. I don't know if it's fate, but it's kind of what Lost is. It's a bunch of random people who came together on this flight because they had to go somewhere, and they all ended up in this predicament that they normally wouldn't do. And if it wasn't for that plane crash, Sawyer would have never met Juliet. And that's like the happiest time of his life. In Lost, every cowboy has daddy issues is the name of an episode, and there's a lot of daddy issues in Lost. I have my own. I have my dad left when I was 17. I haven't talked to him since, and that sucks. But because of that, I had to get a job at Disneyland and work as a janitor. And at Disneyland, I met friends, and their friends were friends with my now wife. And so it's one of those things is you can't latch on to like the shitty stuff in the past. I can dwell on my dad as much, I think about it almost every day, but I also think like I've had my wife at my side since we met in the line for Phantom Menace in 1999, the second greatest year in cinema history. But it's one of those things where I wouldn't change my life for anything. And I don't think it's fate. I just think it's the decisions you make, and the people you decide to have, you decide to associate yourself with. It's kind of lucky, Like I could have a better life somewhere in the timeline, but fuck it, I'm good now.
In Arizona.
Yeah, probably Arizona. No, but that's the thing is like latch onto the happy stuff.
Yeah.
You'll be happier that way. Cut out the toxic stuff. You're great.
Man.
I don't know if it's fate, dude. I don't know if it's fate. But that's the whole thing with Lost. Is it fate? Is it science?
Yeah. Man, I couldn't think of a better way to end this episode than that rant monologue. Let's call it a monologue.
Yeah, I don't know what that was.
I think that's gonna go down in history. When Monster picks up this pod and Spotify jumps on it, this one will be the one that gets submitted to Library of Congress, all this shit. And I was a little late to the pod today, for reasons I won't go into, but this is hitting on it, and it's very weird, and it's looking at the choices you made that were either good or bad, but led you to focus on the good things. And so thank you for that, man. We barely scratched some of these fucking dumb questions, but we're, an hour and 40 minutes in.
Yeah.
and you nailed it right now. And honestly, no joke, I'm so happy we got you on this pod.
I'm glad to be here.
Don't go anywhere because I off record I'm going to ask you a couple things. And ladies and gentlemen, Ralph of Casino Skunk, Getting Lost Doc. Everyone, right now, if you're listening, go to gettinglostdoc.com. Just share, like he said. If you don't have the time or the money, or you want your money to go somewhere else, but just share it. If you're a Lost fan, if you're a fan of music, if you're a fan of pop culture, check out everything Ralph is doing, Taylor's doing. Am I missing it? This has been a fucking blast. Am I miss both of you? Am I missing anything to promote? Now's the time.
No,
Oh man,
that's it.
Father in the band. This is why we do this.
I'm not even a band.